विकास। इससे बेहतर एग्जाम्पल और क्या हो सकता है उसका, कि 8 लोगों में से किसी ने नहीं सोचा कि हमें गोल्ड मेडल चाहिए अकेले, बल्कि उससे ज्यादा प्रायोरिटी उन्होंने दी उसको कि हमारा एक साथी जो पीछे छूट गया है, जो गिर गया है, जो रो रहा है, हम उसको साथ लेकर के चले। और अगर वास्तव में हम ऐसा कर लें तो दुनिया में शायद कोई कॉन्फ्लिक्ट नहीं रह जाएगा, कोई समस्या नहीं रह जाएगी, कोई वार नहीं रह जाएगा। जो कंट्री डेवलप हो चुके हैं वो दूसरी कंट्रीज को साथ लेकर के चले, जो आदमी पढ़ लिख गया है वो दूसरे जो पीछे छूट गए उनको साथ लेकर के चले। इससे बेहतर एग्जाम्पल और क्या हो सकता है सोसाइटी का। चलिए एक और, इस बच्चे से आप लोगों का परिचय है क्या? डू यू अवेयर अबाउट दिस चाइल्ड?
Yes sir, yes sir.
What is his name? His name is Ishan Awasthi, and the screenshot has taken from the movie Tare Zameen Par. And Tare Zameen Par movie was the movie which took initiative first time to speak about the condition a specific learning disability, which has been given prominence in National Education Policy 2020. So, my dear friends, with this introduction, I would like to share with all of you that the only reality of the world is individual differences. Even you might have watched Jodwa movie, and whatever you might have watched, that is true in real life, but that is not true in real life. जुड़वा मूवी में आपने देखा होगा कि दो जुड़वा बच्चे हैं, उनमें से एक को अगर कोई पीटता है तो दूसरे को भी वो उसका पेन महसूस होता है, बट दिस इज नॉट द रियलिटी। रियल लाइफ में ऐसा नहीं होता है। रियल लाइफ में सामान्यतः इवन जुड़वा भाई भी एक दूसरे से बहुत अलग है, कई सारे एस्पेक्ट में एक दूसरे से डिफरेंट है, भिन्न है। अगर लर्नर और लर्निंग रिलेटेड डाइवर्सिटी की बात करें तो जितने भी लर्नर हैं, आपकी क्लास का साइज चाहे जो भी हो, उसमें जितने भी लर्नर हैं सब एक दूसरे से अपने इंटरेस्ट में डिफरेंट है, अपने एप्टीट्यूड में डिफरेंट है, अपने एटीट्यूड में डिफरेंट है, अपने इंटेलिजेंस में डिफरेंट है, अपने स्किल सेट में डिफरेंट है, अपने पर्सनैलिटी ट्रेट्स में डिफरेंट है, अपने डेवलपमेंट रेट्स में डिफरेंट है, अपनी लर्निंग स्टाइल, लर्निंग पेस, some are visual learner, some are auditory learner, some are kinesthetic learner and so on। और इसके अलावा भी कई सारे डायमेंशन हैं, जितने भी ऑलमोस्ट ऑल साइकोलॉजिकल डायमेंशन, पीपल आर डिफरेंट फ्रॉम ईच अदर, एंड बिकॉज ऑफ दैट we need to be aware and very careful about student diversity and inclusive practices we need to adapt। चलिए, this data is from MMTT portal only। So this MMTT portal data says that India's higher education sector has experienced massive expansion, and further the data says that 57% of share in higher education, 57% of students of higher education are coming from socio-economic disadvantaged group। This is a term, socio-economic disadvantaged group, defined in our National Education Policy 2020, including all such marginalized students, marginalized learners। So as you can see, as per the data of Ministry of Education, 57% students are belonging to socio-economic disadvantaged group। If we are not aware of inclusive education, it means what? We are fostering the needs of 100 minus 57, so 43% of students only. Means if we are not aware of inclusive education, we could not be able to foster the needs of even half of our population। So because of that, my dear friends, this is required for a teacher to be aware about the diversities, different conditions, and how we can include them in the class। चलिए थोड़ा आगे बढ़ते हैं। As we discussed, socio-economic disadvantaged group has been mentioned in our national education policy, and these 5 broad categories are included in socio-economic disadvantaged group। The first category is gender identity, particularly female and transgender individuals are included in that। Why these are termed as socio-economic disadvantaged group? Sometimes you think of even first category, female and transgender. Transgender individuals are part and parcel of our society. They live in our society, but many of us, we are not aware where they are living exactly। We may see them at such public gatherings, like at some temples, some other public places, bus stand, railway stations, certain times begging, but most of us are not aware where they are living, what they are doing, what is their source of income, what education they are getting, what are the situation of their education, even school education or higher education. So because of that, even you might be aware that wherever we are going in our country, we need to fill a form, and most of the cases, if you go 10 years back, then we were filling our gender, and there were only two options, male or female. Dichotomy was there. Later on, now with increased awareness, there is the option, third option, cannot say, or some third gender. These options are there. Earlier, it was not there. You can imagine nowadays online forms and everything is there, and suppose some people belonging to transgender, they are filling a form to get enrolled in some university, and the computerized form is showing only two options, male and female. The person cannot associate himself as male nor with female, and whatever he want or she want to write, if she is associating with male or female, she is giving wrong information, and that way she is not eligible for admission in any institution. She is not, he or she is not eligible for any treatment in hospitals. Even cannot book a train ticket like that. So these are taken, and these are considered under the category socioeconomic disadvantage group in first category gender identity. Next is people belonging to socio-cultural identities. We are aware that reservations were given, but still, whatever the progress expected during that time, it is not there. So, people belonging to scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, other backward caste, minorities, they are included in that group. Students belonging to socio-cultural identities. Further, students belonging to different geographical identities. Are you aware about that phenomena, digital divide, what we call? Digital divide, do you aware? Any of you please unmute your mic? डिजिटल डिवाइड सुना आप लोगों ने?
जी सर, जी सर।
क्या है ये बताइए?
Participants, please response. नहीं तो फिर मुझे बोलना पड़ेगा.
मुझे लगता है हमारे पार्टिसिपेंट थक गए हैं और सो गए हैं. So are you sleeping online?
Participants, please बताइए.
No, sir, we are listening to you.
Okay, okay.
Yes, please. हाँ.
So, anyways, digital divide is simple phenomena. ICT tools are developing with a rapid rate, very rapid rate, and there is a big difference between a child born and brought up in a rural area where not much exposure is there of ICT tools, and a child born and brought up in urban areas who is utilizing all ICT based tools from even his infancy and childhood. तो दोनों में एक जमीन आसमान का डिफरेंस हो जाएगा. हालांकि दोनों का आईक्यू लेवल सेम हो, बाकी नर्सरिंग सेम हो, तब भी 8-10 साल बाद सिर्फ आईसीटी टूल से इंटरेक्शन करते हुए एक बच्चे की पर्सनालिटी में डिफरेंस आ जाएगा, और वो जो दूसरा बच्चा जिसको नहीं है इसका एक्सपोजर, उसकी पर्सनालिटी में बहुत डिफरेंस आपको देखने को मिलेगा. सो इस डिजिटल डिवाइड के चलते इसको कम करने के लिए गांव के बच्चे, शहर के बच्चे, खास करके छोटे शहरों के बच्चे, इनको भी रखा गया है सोशियो इकोनॉमिक डिसएडवांटेज ग्रुप की श्रेणी में नेशनल एजुकेशन पॉलिसी 2020 में. फिर जो बड़ा कैटेगरी है वो डिसेबिलिटी का है. You might be aware about, I have discussed with all of you RPWD Act, and I request you all that if you want to understand National Education Policy 2020 in totality, you do not forget to go through RPWD Act, Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act 2016. Why I am saying this? Because if you go through National Education Policy 2020, it has clearly mentioned that whenever education of persons with disabilities is concerned, all the provisions of RPWD Act are accepted for that. And even the definition of inclusive education, whatever is mentioned and taken in National Education Policy 2020, it is identical to that whatever given in RPWD Act 2016. And this is the beauty of National Education Policy 2020. Before National Education Policy, not a single policy dealt with other acts and policies. And because of that, what was happening? Certain times there is a big what you can say, conflict between different acts and provisions, and then we need to go for amendments, and it is another time taking job. So for the first time, national education policy has clearly mentioned that wherever education of persons with disabilities is concerned, all the provisions of RPWD Act is applicable. And the fifth category is socio-economic conditions. हम और आप सब लोगों ने देखा होगा, कई सारे बच्चे जो है आपको सड़क के किनारे भीख मांगते दिखते हैं, सार्वजनिक स्थलों पे, मंदिरों पे, मस्जिदों पे, इस प्रकार के जो भी रिलीजियस प्लेस हैं या जहाँ पे उनको कुछ मिलने की संभावना होती है, बस स्टैंड हो, रेलवे हो, स्टेशन हो, वहाँ पे वो भीख मांगते दिखते हैं। क्यों? उनमें से कोई डॉक्टर बन सकता है, कोई इंजीनियर बन सकता है, कोई नेता राजनेता बन सकता है। Why they are cursed to be at public places and to ask and to beg for their survival? Why not they should be given the opportunity? तो ये लोग भी शामिल किए गए हैं सोशियो इकोनॉमिक डिसएडवांटेज ग्रुप में एज पर NEP 2020। चलिए थोड़ा आगे बढ़ते हैं। ये सारी कवायद जो हमने की और जो भी नेशनल एजुकेशन पॉलिसी वगैरह हम लोग इम्प्लीमेंट किए, उसके पीछे एक बड़ा कारण है। ये सिर्फ ऐसा नहीं कि इंडियन नीड्स के हिसाब से है या सरकारें बदली तो सारी चीजें बदल गई, ऐसा भी नहीं है, बल्कि ये एक सिस्टमेटिक और अर्जेंट नीड था नेशनल एजुकेशन पॉलिसी 2020 का, जो और पहले आ जाना चाहिए था, काफी बाद में आया, लेकिन कोई बात नहीं, दे रहा है दुरुस्त आए। So if you go through national education policy 2020, it has clearly mentioned that if we want to achieve sustainable development goals by 2030, we need to transform our education system. And for that purpose only, for transformation in education system, national education policy 2020 has been introduced. You might be aware about sustainable development goals. These are 17 in numbers and focused around 5 P's. The first P is people. Whatever development agenda is there across the globe, the prime focus of any such development agenda should be the upliftment of lives of people. Second is focus point is planet, because what we have done since last 100 200 years as a result of scientific development, we have made much harm to our environment and our planet. And if our planet will not be there, where we will be? So sustainable development goals considers and gives equal importance to people as well as planet. Peace is also very much required. We all are aware that this many atom bombs we have made, that entire world can be destroyed even 10 to 15 times, not only one time. So peace is also very much required. Otherwise, no development agenda will be fruitful. Prosperity, or no doubt that whatever sustainable development goals are there, it is all about making all the persons living in the world prosperous. And finally, partnership. It is not possible for a single country to contribute alone and to achieve all the sustainable development goals. Rather, each and every country need to partner for achieving sustainable development goals. Then only it can be achieved. So I will not be discussing all 17 sustainable development goals. Just I request you that kindly see the fourth goal, number 4. It is related to equitable and inclusive quality education for all. Goal number 5, it is related to gender equality. Goal number 10, reduced inequalities. Goal number 8, decent work and economic growth. These are directly related to education of persons with disabilities, or you can say student diversity and inclusive education. So these things I have discussed, so I do not need to repeat that. Our national education policy says that the prime focus of national education policy is to bridge social category gaps in access, participation, and learning outcomes. How we can bridge social category gaps in access? If you see the unfortunate part of the story, in our country, India is said that it is country of villages. भारत गांवों का देश है, और भारत जैसे गांवों के देश में, जहां भारत की 70 से 80% जनसंख्या गांव में निवास करती है, वहां पे 70 से 80% यूनिवर्सिटीज और हायर एजुकेशन इंस्टीट्यूशन शहरों के आसपास खुले हुए हैं, गांव में नहीं। इससे ज्यादा कंट्रोवर्सी और क्या हो सकती है? इससे ज्यादा दुखद सत्य और क्या हो सकता है? So, because of that, National Education Policy 2020 is committed to bridge social category gaps in access by opening new colleges, universities, and higher education institutions, by increasing the participation of learners in those schools, and finally to improve learning outcomes. So, at these three levels, we need to work so that we could be able to bridge social category gaps. These are some highlights from National Education Policy 2020. That the first thing I have discussed with all of you, that broad group of marginalized children has been identified and they are termed as socioeconomic disadvantaged groups. Second thing, good thing is that this policy has taken into account other acts, policies, and provisions for inclusion. For the first time, any policy is saying that wherever the education of persons with disabilities is concerned, they will be treated as per the regulation of RPWD Act. And as I communicated you, that special attention has been given to children with a specific learning disability in our national education policy. Why? Because nowadays the specific learning disability has been increasing day by day among children, and it is among one of those invisible disability. You cannot visualize, but the condition is there. So we need to give attention to our students belonging to a specific learning disability categories, particularly as per NEP 2020. Further, there is a provision of special education zones. What has been proposed in National Education Policy 2020 is that suppose there is a geographical area dominated by a particular tribe or particular persons belonging to SC, ST, OBC, or whatever it is, then that particular area will be declared as a special education zone, and all education related projects will be conducted in that particular area with a special focus. So such areas will be declared as special education zones. Finally, our national education policy has advocated about recruiting teachers from socio-economic disadvantaged group so that they could give the example from their own culture, so that they could act as a community leader if students if some student is hesitant to some what you can say, whenever we recruit teachers from socio-economic disadvantaged group, teacher will act as community leader, teacher will give examples from their own community, and many ways he or she will be beneficial. Further, it is said that there should be a single window system for opportunities, benefits, and a scheme for children from socio-economic disadvantaged group. This is a big problem with our country and big challenge to our country, that lot of provisions are there for socio-economic disadvantaged group, but people are unable to get benefit from that. The reason behind, they are not aware sometimes. Uh, Sometimes they are thinking and lingering on, but they are not getting. So in order to avoid all this crisis, it has been said that there should be single window system. Uh, you might be aware that education is in concurrent list, and state government as well as central government both can make rule for improving education system in our country. In such a situation, some provisions, some benefits are being given by state government, some benefits are being given by central government. So that way, certain times people are not aware and they are not getting benefit from it. And if there will be a single window system, one can contact and one can whatever learn whatever he or she wants. Further, it has been said gender inclusion. Even after 70, 75 years of independence, we have not achieved women representation or gender inclusion in mainstream of higher education system. And at the end, inclusion in higher education has been advocated by our National Education Policy 2020. It says that we need to provide inclusive higher education also. And this is another beauty of National Education Policy. For the first time, any policy has said that there should be inclusion in higher education, inclusion in school education, inclusion in even early childhood care and education. Otherwise, previously it was not the practice. And because of that, what happened, whenever we talk about universalization of elementary education, Now the data of ministry is saying that about 90% of children are attending the school. But on the other hand, how many of them are going to higher education? Nobody is aware. So this is a welcoming step of that national level policy that it has talked about inclusion in higher education also. Okay, so I'll be skipping some slides. Why we should be inclusive? You might be hearing about the word inclusive education, inclusive growth, inclusive society, and so on. So the prime focus of and the ultimate goal of inclusive education is to achieve inclusive society. Further, it is a global agenda also, and major concern of human rights. Prime focus of National Education Policy 2020, prime focus of RPWD Act 2016, and prime focus of Sustainable Development Goals. So, because of that, we have excluded people from our mainstream system of education. So, we need to bring them back, and we need to provide inclusive education to all of them. You see, this is the observation of National Education Policy 2020 that there are certain facets of exclusion that are particular to or substantially more intense in higher education. Our policy is saying that there are many ways how people are being discriminated and being excluded from a particular situation, and these are more intense in higher education. Whereas whenever we were talking about inclusive education, we were working with school education. Even many times, school education and inclusive education were being understood as similar to each other, and although we got good result at the school level and about 90% of the students are attending the school, although 10% where they went, this is another gray area, but as compared to higher education, 90% of school going children, they are attending their schools. But in higher education, the percentage I discussed with all of you, it is not even up to 1%, it is below 0.5%. So if the problem is there in higher education, which is more intensive, why not we should focus on higher education, which is more intensive, and that way we would have better opportunity to implement inclusive education at higher education level. Okay, so for the first time, National Education Policy has talked about gifted children. There are multiple expressions of human diversity, and giftedness is one of those. A child is said as gifted when he or she is scoring very high score on intelligence tests, particularly a standardized interest test. And with giftedness, there is another term moves parallelly of what we call creativity. So please remember that to be a child, to be gifted, his IQ should be more than 140, and he should be above average than a normal child. Whereas if we talk about creativity, then creativity is different thing than giftedness. Giftedness comes with convergent thinking, whereas creativity comes with divergent thinking. So these are some teaching methods which I were not supposed to talk, but okay, anyway, we see that whenever we want to teach a gifted child, we need to see these following methods: ability grouping, curriculum enrichment, tiered assignment, flexibility and autonomy, acceleration, and exploring lessons. Such way, gifted as well as creative children could be taught, could be included. So let us move forward directly at RPWD Act. Lot of discussions we have made about inclusive education and all, but what exactly inclusive education is? So if you go through the definitions given in NEP 2020 as well as in RPWD Act, both are similar, and what is the definition? That inclusive education is a system of education. First thing you remember that it is a system of education. And if we talk about what are the essential components of a system, that is input, out processing, and output. सो इट इज सिस्टम ऑफ एजुकेशन। और होता क्या है इस सिस्टम ऑफ एजुकेशन में, ये देखिए जरा, जहाँ की डिसेबिलिटी के बच्चे और नॉन डिसेबिलिटी के बच्चे साथ साथ पढ़ते हैं, और इतने पे खत्म नहीं होती कहानी, साथ साथ बिठा दिया, साथ साथ पढ़ लिया, हो गया। टीचिंग और लर्निंग सिस्टम को सुटेबली अडेप्ट करना पड़ेगा जो बच्चे की नीड है, टू मीट द लर्निंग नीड्स ऑफ डिफरेंट टाइप्स ऑफ स्टूडेंट विद डिसेबिलिटीज। अदरवाइज even if as it is a system of education, so three components are there: input, processing and output, और इनमें से एक भी कंपोनेंट अगर वो होता है, मिस होता है, then we will miss again another chance to be included or to enrich inclusive education with a student enrollments. हमेशा ध्यान रखिए कि अगर बच्चे को, नॉन डिसेबल्ड बच्चे को, डिसेबल्ड बच्चे को साथ साथ बिठा के पढ़ाया जा रहा है, लेकिन टीचिंग लर्निंग इन्वायरमेंट को सुटेबली अडेप्ट नहीं किया गया है, दैट इज मे बी समथिंग एल्स, बट दैट विल नॉट बी कंसीडर्ड एज इंक्लूसिव एजुकेशन। ये जरा 2018-19 का और 2021-22 का है ये